Hey everybody, thanks for the introduction. My name's Zeb. I teach most of the junior and senior 3D animation courses, and that includes 3D for games and films. I also am the co-director of Media Arts and Science. So today we're going to be talking about hopefully some things that you guys have already heard a little bit about, what's going on in the games, films, and 3D industries, and how a lot of the technologies being combined and repurposed to make better workflows and more realistic items, not only for entertainment but also for other things that are more if Indiana-centric, if you might say. So I spend a lot of time talking to students like yourselves and families about job outlook, what's in Indiana versus what's out west and things like that. So what we're going to do today is go over some of the projects that we are doing at the school or have done in the past, and then look towards the future. And I think what I hope each of you get out of today, whether you're choosing 3D or games or films, is maybe one way to anticipate what the future will look like. And as you're taking the courses, always asking yourself, like, how can I use this technology or anticipate trends for something that I care about or technology that I care about. And please feel free to ask questions in the chat. I tend to talk long. I really love this stuff, and I haven't really talked to students for about a month, so I apologize if I'm super wordy. So let's get moving. Oh, I need to share my screen. Let's do that. Great. So I caught this slide the other day. Hopefully some of you have seen The Princess Bride. I'm from Indiana originally, Westfield, Indiana, third generation. And I grew up loving Squaresoft, Final Fantasy games, historical fiction, and storytelling and art in general. I consider myself an artist, and most of the faculty in Media Arts and Science do. But we're also technicians, and we kind of use both sides of our brains. We have professors that do animation, but outside of teaching are musicians. We have professors that are professional sculptors. We have professors that do documentaries. So we have a lot of professors that do the thing they teach, but also might be savants in other ways. And I think I've already managed expectations on what we're up to today. So I thought I would start out first with our 3D game and film reel. Let me jump over to, actually I'm going to make sure our audio is shared here. There we go. And show you some of our student work from the last year. So just give you an idea of the hard work our students do.
Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
So we have pretty much an entire pipeline of 3D classes. I keep sharing the wrong screen. And we set it up just like a studio, Pixar or Blizzard. These are the classes that I teach. We also have another 3D professor that teaches many of the sophomore and junior level courses. So we start out with the fundamentals of 3D modeling and texturing and rigging and animation. And as we go through the courses, or as you go through the courses, you get further and further into what we call the studio pipeline, each department as you get to the finish. So before the 3D classes, you even take pre-production classes, so script writing, storyboarding, things like that. And over the last couple of years, we've even began to implement classes in virtual reality, 3D printing, augmented reality. So we're stacked deep, and it takes the full 4 years to get through the 3D specialization. A lot of students ask me, like, what's it like to be in classes? Most of the classes, once you're in 3D for game or film, aren't larger than 20 to 25. And once you're a senior, the classes are around 15. But it takes like a special mentality, a creative mentality, and a hard work ethic for each class, because you're taking 2 or 3 at a time. So these are kind of like some of the rules, or like things I try to get students to adopt as they start taking our classes. First, um, uh, a dose of humble sauce. I suck and I know it. We want everybody coming in and being humble and taking the attitude that there's always something to learn. If you can draw, that doesn't mean you can sculpt, and if you can sculpt, that doesn't mean you can texture. So there's always something to learn and get better at. And that we just like to say, we suck and we know it. What can we get better at today? Being on time, pretty obvious. Turn every assignment in and work hard, and you'll get better. We have a lot of students that go up and down in their productivity, but to get you ready for the West Coast, we need you working at least 10 hours a week per class. So that means you also need to turn in your assignments. Asking lots of questions and giving and asking for critique is a huge part of media arts, especially I would say the 3D game and film specializations in particular. So asking for people's feedback. Is your art coming across properly? Does the character resonate with an audience? Those are things that are really important to this industry. Even though we make things for ourselves as students in class, the industry is making things for other people, and it's important to get used to getting feedback and critique for those things. Help contribute to a culture of creativity. This just means other people have cool ideas, and we want to support them in their ideas and their endeavors and their passions. So it's not all about just each and every one of us. It's about the people around us and creating a cool culture on campus. Consuming less and creating more. For most students, that is a challenge. We're going to watch fewer movies, play less video games, make fewer movies, make more video games. The more we make, the more we become professionals. So consuming is not making. Hopefully you guys know that. And the sooner you adopt it, it'll be easier to get a job. Be excited every day, even though it's very hard, especially in these times. And probably one of my favorite pieces of advice that I ever got was be interested, not interesting. And that just means maybe talk a little less and listen a little more to what people are talking about around you. Be interested in what their stories are about, what their characters are about, what their games are about. How can you help them succeed? If you're helping others succeed, that usually comes back in exponential form for you, especially when you're a young person. That goes for helping faculty with their work too. Have a good attitude or fake it. And then one that I've added after the last few years, Jacob Dobson and I, another instructor here, we talk a lot about like the 3 large variables in art, in game making and filmmaking and environments. A lot of students concentrate on technique, learning the software, learning the buttons and getting really strong at technique, but it's only a third of the puzzle when you're making a film or a game. The next hardest part of the puzzle is aesthetic. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Is it interesting? Does it have good composition, color, style? Those things are a little bit harder than learning software. And then the hardest is creating meaning with your work. What do people feel when they watch your story or play your video game? Is it replayable? Is it fun? Does it leave a message once you're done with the story or the game? That's something artists and professionals strive their entire lives to have, like one project that people never forget. So we're always striving for meaning and aesthetic and technique, and we usually start in your lower classes, mostly technique. Once we get to sophomore and junior year, we're concentrating a lot on technique still, but also, well, is this image portfolio quality? Is this video portfolio quality? Can we show off this game in an interview? That's the aesthetic. And every once in a while we have things that our students make that are just super powerful, whether it's a political statement or a story that's really cool. If you get all three, we get the holy grail, and that's what everybody's after when they're working for a big company. And then I always joke around, we don't have to worry about it in these COVID times because everybody's stuck at home, but we want you to shower and be clean when you come to campus so everybody smells good. I really appreciate that when everybody's dressed professionally and smelling, maybe not like college students, but I don't have to worry about that right now. Something else before we start showing some of the projects I want you guys to think about every semester, if not every week, is like what type of professional might you want to be? And I kind of group these into two categories: a generalist professional or a specialized professional. A generalist professional is somebody, or most people in Indiana, if they're working in marketing or game or film companies, they're good at most areas of production. So if you're in film, you might be able to script write well and storyboard well and use a camera well and edit well and color well. Those are many of the parts of making a film. But if you go to the West Coast, you're going to be a specialist. You're probably going to do one of those things 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. You're not going to be doing all the parts of making a film or a game or a 3D film when you work at a company that has thousands of people. So if you want to wear many hats and do different things each day, you probably want to be a generalist, which means you're going to work at a smaller studio and maybe a part of the world or a part of the US that isn't LA or New York or Chicago and has smaller studios. That way you can do more of the project and have many responsibilities. But if you want to work at Blizzard or Pixar or Disney or any of those, we have lots of students that work at those companies, you're going to be a small cog in the wheel and be really, really good at like one or two things and get paid really well to do those one or two things. And lots of people like that safety in doing the one thing really well, and that's a specialist. So usually students are like, where should I go after I graduate? And I'm like, well, are you good at many things? Do you want to work at a small studio, have lots of creative control, or do you just want to help produce something that's super big with a large team? That might mean you're going to LA or Hollywood or some of the other hubs in the US. So think about that. Generally, most students know what they want to do, or at least they think they know what they want in freshman year. But as they do different things in the software and work on different projects with team members, they realize they are good leaders or they're good at pre-production and production, and they start gravitating towards generalists. Or in like my case, you find a girlfriend, soon to be wife, and you want to start a family, you want to do that in Indiana, so you're going to be more of a generalist than if you went to LA for specialization. So today what we're really going to talk about is like some of the projects that I've worked on with students over the last 3 to 4 years, and how those projects really set up kind of a personality in young professionals on future-proofing their careers. And I think it's more of a mentality than an ability. It's something that you nurture and you're always thinking about, how can I use this technology in a new way, or to make a new industry, or to make a new business, or disrupt a business. And I call that future proofing. It's an exciting term, and it can be applied in any domain. But because in media arts and science we use a lot of advanced technologies in both games and films, we can affect a lot of different industries outside of entertainment. And probably 3D printing, virtual reality, and augmented reality are 3 of the most disruptive technologies outside of like artificial intelligence that the world's seen in the last 20 years. And these are tools that we use and will be using for your entire career. So that's what we're going to talk about a lot today. So what I've been doing over the last couple of years is acquiring projects that allow us to, our students and our faculty, learn new technology and apply industry methods that you would find only in Hollywood to projects maybe slightly outside of entertainment in Indiana. And because we have those cool technologies, our students get to also make their games and films with those technologies from IUPUI, and I think that's pretty exciting. So as a byproduct of having those cool technologies in classes, our students learn to anticipate what Indiana corporations might need with these new technologies. They get to make new businesses and new positions for themselves. Within class, we get to have fun and disrupt, making prototypes. And prototypes for me is it's a safe project where the failure is actually rewarded. The quicker we fail, the more we can iterate, the more we can learn. And then we tend to create very entrepreneurial students and students that go 100 miles per hour and figure out what works and what doesn't and come out with something incredibly new and exciting. So hopefully you see that in the next few slides. So for me, wearing both my hats as a teacher and the co-director of the program, our largest problem to solve is we're in Indiana. We have many students that make incredible artwork. Some of that is what you see right now. And we need to figure out how to make them both marketable on the West Coast and in Indiana. So statistically, we have students that want to work in film, animation, or game industries, which is great, which is traditionally Los Angeles or Vancouver, but the industry is moving elsewhere in North America, Toronto, Montreal, Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago, New York. But saying all of that, even now, I would say 80 to 85% of our graduates decide to stay in Indiana, whatever that reason is. So how can we still train them for the West Coast, which is what we do, but also educate you guys on how to make yourselves marketable or useful if you do stay in Indiana. And while we're doing that, we try to create collaborative partnerships with the local companies. That way our students do see how do game engines and film and 3D, how are they used at Indiana companies. This is typically what I show mom and dad. You can screenshot it or show them the video later. This is usually gets everybody excited. These are industry financial market forecasts for 3D printing and augmented and virtual reality. So on the left, you see previous forecasts in yellow for 3D printing and current forecast in billions for the 3D printing market. So this is a pretty wide picture. So selling 3D printers, selling the plastic, selling the things made from 3D printers, that entire industry is in the billions, and I would argue it's probably closer to 50 billion. This image is a couple years old that I keep using. And then on the right, augmented and virtual reality, and we're looking at over 100 billion in VR and AR. And I've seen even more recent estimates in just augmented reality and teaching different tasks, whether it's learning to be a surgeon or learning chemistry. Using augmented reality, the market is estimated in 10 years, when you guys are 5 years out of college, to be over $1 trillion, which is it's a lot of zeros. And hope some of you make a lot of money with those zeros. So both of these industries, 3D printing, AR, and VR, outside of movies, outside of video games, totally new markets to make money in and have careers in, but still use game engines and 3D software. So the things that we teach our students at IUPUI just have more and more and more career opportunities, and that just makes me super happy and excited for all of your futures, and it makes it a lot easier to tell mom and dad, yes, video games have a place, even in Indiana, even if it's slightly outside of entertainment. So this is a really solid one if you're getting challenges from mom and dad. So what's going on behind the scenes outside of classes and more like the program level? Our goals are to increase students' experiences both on and off campus. How can we have you working on projects that are team-based, that are cloud-based, that have clients or partners in the city or on campus? We're trying to have more and more classes that allow you to work on teams and projects. We want to teach the community in the state of Indiana, its companies, that our students that make video games, virtual reality, augmented and 3D printing technologies, that they can and will have extreme value in each company. And that results in creating better prepared professionals, young students and young professionals that can articulate their value, especially if they decide to stay in Indiana. And then rinse and repeat. And we've been doing that for a few years now. So when you hear me say outside of entertainment, a lot of the success that we've had working with local partners has been highly in medical, dental, and mental health. And then we'll go over these projects in a second. We've also done a lot of historical preservation, so like digitizing historical sites, spaces, environments, and digs. That way they're preserved forever. Some projects in photogrammetry, we'll talk about what that is in a bit. And then I also like showing some projects that I call Blade Runner projects. They're just projects that we challenge our students with that may or may not have a answer, and usually the students come up with some really cool solutions. So hopefully when you're looking at colleges for game design and 3D and filmmaking, you see that they're using the industry standard software, but what they may or may not have allow you to have access to is not only the software, but advanced technologies like scanning and 3D printers and motion capture and things like that. So all of it together is creating entirely new project opportunities for our students. Even if we're on campus, sans COVID-19 situations, our students in almost every class are communicating minute by minute with faculty if they're on projects through Slack or Discord. We also have unlimited cloud space for sharing files. If you're a coder or developer, you're probably going to be using GitHub or GitKraken or a little bit of both, sharing code. And we're always experimenting with collaborative cloud-based software products. So Maya, Unreal, Unity, Adobe, even Photoshop. You can work on one Photoshop file with many people at once on the cloud. So we're using the most collaborative and trending tools on the cloud, regardless of whether it's a film, a game, or something in between. So one of the first projects I want to show, and one of the oldest, is for 3D printing, is a partnership with the School of Dentistry. And just keep it short, we were challenged to help recreate a prosthetic workflow for this gentleman named Shirley Anderson. And Shirley had his entire lower mandible removed due to some surgery complications. And he would come to IUPUI School of Dentistry typically every 6 months to receive a new prosthetic. The old way of making prosthetics for the face is putting plaster on the patient. In this case, Shirley had almost 5 pounds of plaster on his face, allowing it to heat up and cure so you get a form of his face, and then sculpting with clay the portion of the face that we would make out of silicone. Our students and myself were challenged to recreate a digital workflow. That way plaster was no longer necessary. And I thought I would share a little snippet in partnership we did with Forum Labs, a 3D printing company. So, can you guys see the Shirley Technique?
My name is Shirley Anderson. Some people call me Andy.
This is kind of what he looked like always. This is my husband, Shirley Anderson. I'm his wife, Della. We've been married too long, according to Shirley, but he's stuck with me now. It'll be 50 years in September. Love at first sight, wasn't it? Yes, it was. He was so infatuated. A lot of good, some bad, like in any other marriage. But I think this has been the test. We met Travis because Shirley was in great need of a prosthesis. He wanted me to tell you that when he had his first surgery and radiation was in 1998. He had a cancerous place on his tongue and they did radiation and a radium implant. Yeah, they took his chest muscles out to pull them up into his mouth to give him some good tissue, but it didn't work. It's kind of been one bad thing after another, but it all stemmed from the radiation.
The prosthesis necessary to rehabilitate Shirley is larger than anything we've made here at Indiana University. In someone's career, in my field, you may never be challenged with a prosthesis of this nature. Maxillofacial prosthetics requires customized solutions for every patient. The traditional process for impression, sculpting, mold making, and aesthetic characterization is a laborious task. I knew there was a need for a digital solution.
Travis and his colleagues are the first people in white coats to ever enter this space. He was like, hey, I have this really cool idea that you guys should get on board with. And we were like, yes, absolutely, let's do it right now. I got on the Cintiq, and one of the biggest things about the prostheses is having a feathered edge margin where the prosthesis comes in contact with the patient. So there's a tool in ZBrush. It's a tool in which you could pinch geometry to become very thin and very feathered. It was half awe and half frustration that they had been doing it the wrong way for so long. The patient comes in and we scan them. Then we take all of that scan data, we bring it into our software to do our design work. We print the molds on a 3D printer. Then we take those 3D printed molds, we invest those 3D printed molds with silicone, and then we take those silicone prostheses and we fit the patient.
With Form 2 printing, we can see the actual pores in the skin, and we can see the subtle wrinkles that Cade has put into his design. The fit of our molds is so intimate, it's so precise, that we can get a perfect feather edge margin. We've used 3D printing to replace probably about 75–80% of the process in traditional prosthetic fabrication. You inspired us to develop a team who can help other patients at IU.
That's wonderful. That's what Shirley wants, is to help other people.
We started with Shirley Anderson, but we've expanded that workflow to several other patients here. Jackie was involved in an industrial accident and he lost his left ear. We've taken the ear from the right side, we've mirrored it in our software, we've flipped it to the left, and we've created a support system for the ear. Being able to provide that digital solution at the second visit in such a short time frame is unprecedented.
For me, it started off as a unique challenge and something really different that would be very interesting to be a part of. And then it kind of morphed into, helping people in a very unique way. Maxillofacial prosthodontics and the entertainment industry, they don't really get together and talk to each other about, here's how we can benefit each other, so why not? Like, why wouldn't we be able to continue this trend?
10 years down the road, who knows how fast they're going to be able to make something like that. You're the guinea pig, I know what you're going to write.
It's a privilege to have an opportunity to work with a patient like Shirley, because Shirley makes the process collaborative. Although it's likely the most significant challenge that I will ever face in my prosthetic career, let's make another one. I think it may be the most rewarding.
Makes it more worthwhile, doesn't it, Shirley, going through it if you know that it's going to help somebody else.
I love that story. We met Shirley in late 2015. That video with Form Labs was shot in April 2016. Since then, we've healed over, when a student says they're interested in working with dentists and radiation and burn clinicians, we pair those students inside of our classes that teach those technology skills instantly with those types of people at IUPUI. So like, remember the theme of today is future proofing. How can we use entertainment? You are with us, and if you are interested in working on collaborations like this, it's quite easy because of the relationships we've already built to pair you with those experiences and like learn ZBrush, but also not only making game and film characters, but also like helping people with prosthetics. I'm going to zoom a little bit through the next few, but it's kind of rinse and repeat. These are stories of our students using 3D game and film technologies in more Indiana-centric ways after they've learned West Coast entertainment pipeline. So Cade now works in Lebanon, Indiana. He directs a digital design department at a company called Online Resources, Inc. And he does lots of digital scanning from people to 747s to Indianapolis 500 cars. And every day is different for him, but he got that job because of his ability to create new workflows and collaborate with people that have never done digital before. We have lots of campus rewards, some patents in the works because we were the first team in the world to do something like this. Pretty exciting. Also in 3D printing and also with Formlabs 3D printers, they loved our team so much they came back for more. You can follow this link after the talk, but essentially they challenged us to partner with Lyman Connor, who is an entrepreneur that moonlit after working during the day at GE to create a super affordable robotic hand prosthetic that could be sized to fit any patient, whether the patient was young and needed a different hand more frequently because of their growing, or if something breaks, you could remake it. So like a traditional robotic prosthetic for a hand can be in the $40,000, $50,000 range, and Lyman was proposing a $4,000 to $5,000 prosthetic. And our team with students from dentistry, media arts and science, and engineering reverse engineered his plans and his design to make it scalable, so we could 3D print hundreds of parts and make them interchangeable, different sizes for different patients, and super affordable. And he's selling those out of Pennsylvania now. So you can watch that story. It's really cool. It's the first time I realized that 3D printing wasn't a customizable solution per patient, and we could mass manufacture things with many 3D printers, and it's something Formlabs is really pushing now, kind of like the idea of micro manufacturing centers that use 3D printers instead of metal lathes and things like that. One of the other technologies we've been using a lot at Media Arts and Science is something called photogrammetry. And I mentioned earlier that we do a lot of historical preservation. We do it with museums around town. We have a study abroad to Greece. And we even have done some projects with dentistry as well. Photogrammetry in the game industry is a way to take actors in real life, pictures from many angles at once, and then run it through software and create a digital 3D digital likeness from that. So you can see on the left many photos from many angles of the statue captured in a rig similar to this. We just put an entire actor with all their costumes in there and capture it in one moment, and then digitize it, and then start the 3D production process. Now, while we don't have a camera system like this, we do use photogrammetry and its software a lot at the School of Informatics and Computing. One of my favorite projects to talk about is this digital recreation of a river called the Muggins Gulch Road in Colorado. And this gulch and most gulches in the Rocky Mountains, the river and the bends change so frequently because of ice melt and snow melt that it's hard to predict where to put roads or how to protect bridges. So this project was the idea was, can we digitize the river every season and see how it's moving over a few years and how the banks are changing, and then run it through other special software to anticipate where the river might change. That way this road doesn't wash out as much. So what we did in this project is we took a drone, flew it over a half mile of the river in Colorado, digitized that into 3D, and then we put it into Unity, a game engine that's very widely used across the industry and entertainment, and it allowed the scientists and the construction people and the contractors to physically walk down the road and walk down the river and see through time the changes of the bank and what parts of the road might be affected. Super cool. Still using photogrammetry, and probably one of the coolest projects I've been a part of. So we met, if you remember Shirley Anderson a few examples ago, we met him in 2015. We met this patient a couple of years later, 2018, and we challenged ourselves, could we make a prosthetic for this gentleman in under 24 hours? So if you remember Shirley and his wife, they said, wow, in 10 years we'll be able to do this in one day. Within 2.5 years, we were doing it in one day, and we actually made the prosthetic for his nose, our first prosthetic, in about 16 hours. And the reason we were able to do that is because we stopped using scanners and started using photogrammetry with cell phones. So we found a decently lit office in the school, and we took a video. So we took a video with a cell phone camera, and the reason we did that is we basically wanted to create a way for anybody to receive a facial prosthetic anywhere in the world. And to do that, we needed to use technology that everybody has access to, in this case, cell phones with decent cameras. This is a cell phone, or I think an iPhone 6 camera, so cameras are even way better. So you get the idea. We go around, we get the many angles. We take around every 20th picture from that video, and we run it through the photogrammetry software, and this is what we get. So on the left is what we would be using for most of our dental collaborations. So you're going to see it's like super accurate and clean. And the other four are different software solutions, different amounts of photos, different processes and qualities in the software. And what we're testing here is like how close can we get to that scan on the left, and how quickly. So here's the two best. You can see there's a little noise, it's a little blurry, but even though it's a little blurry, we were able to successfully make a nose prosthetic that fit this patient to the point where he was super confident to go out in public, which is the whole point. It's not a functional nose, it's purely aesthetic. It makes our patients comfortable to go out in public so they're not stared at, right? So we're still working on this. How can we help people all around the world? And if there are students that are both good at ZBrush but want to help people in the world, this is typically where we set them. So in similar vein, we do a lot of historical preservation. One of my favorite projects from a few years ago was digitally preserving the oldest African-American church in Indianapolis called Bethel AMC. It's actually right across the street from School of Informatics and Computing. The church had some roof leak issues. It was over 150 years old, and the congregation was forced to sell the space and the land to continue their congregation elsewhere. So as part of the collaboration, the school just said, we're gonna capture the whole chapel and see what we can do with our technology at the school to like at least let people see what the church was like before it was sold. So we laser scanned from actually the company that Cade now works at. We laser scanned the entire inside of the chapel. Then our game art students remodeled based upon the scan, kind of like a digital tracing paper. We remodeled it, and then our students that wanted to be texture artists and lighting artists retextured and relit the entire space. So you can see like from the beginning scan to the final game engine result using Unreal, what we were able to publish. And now there's a website you can go, you can download a Oculus or an HTC Vive version of this space and learn about the congregation over the last 150 years. It's really cool. And our students did that. So exactly the same processes to make a video game, just a little bit more relevant to Indiana. Here's some video of that process. And we can also do actors and actresses. So this was 3 or 4 years ago, and we've been scanning people for quite some time and recreating their full body scans. And we've just acquired a full motion capture system. So now not only can we scan actors, but we can also record their body, hands, and facial performances. That way we can put them into historical digitally preserved sites or entirely fictional stories. Pretty fun. So we're quite literally using the same pipelines as your favorite game companies now. Switching industries, we have a lot of students that are incredible artists at Realtime, making things look super realistic in both renders and video games, and they usually get snatched up by local research firms while they're still in school. So here's some of the work for Neurosurgical Atlas. So all this is 3D. Some of it was scanned and repurposed. You can't scan a brain very well, so that was made by hand. And this partnership, the whole goal is to create an anatomically accurate brain with all the systems, and then teach teach surgeries, teach anatomy, teach how to do different things. And the Neurosurgical Atlas is a organization in Indianapolis that's ran by Dr. Cohen Goodall, and Dr. Cohen's one of the world's leading brain surgeons. He's right here in Indianapolis, so he pays our top students really, really well. Even before graduation, we've had some students making $80 an hour working for him. Probably our most transformative project that I've worked on outside of the 3D printing area is a partnership with children's psychiatry or psychology. And what we've been doing over the last 5 years is progressive and iterative research projects in which we bully young people in virtual reality, and then sometimes we watch how their brain imaging changes, or their heart rate changes, or their sweat and their hands change. So what we're doing with that is we're just starting to understand and report to the world what VR can do outside of entertainment to help kids deal with anger issues or phobias and things like that. So in 2015, our first project was awarded about $70,000 to pay students to not only make the game or the virtual reality game experience, but also all the art and the code. This is what we resulted in for the first study over about a year using the Generation 1 HTC Vive. Fast forward 5 years ago, we're supported by an NIH grant for almost $1.2 million, and all the students on this get paid to work on it. So this is like the new version of the cafeteria, the same cafeteria. You can see how the technology's gotten better, how our students have gotten better, how much more realistic it is. But we're also using the Oculus Quest, which has no wires, and our students can work from home, which is super important right now to keep the study going. So our students that want to be character artists are learning how to make super efficient, super realistic characters for specifically the Oculus Quest, which has computing challenges just because it's wireless. But also realistic environments for those experiences to be in. So we're in year 2 of a 5-year research project. It's very likely some of you in this talk could be working on this project as it moves forward and making money outside of taking classes if you're interested. So we pay all of our students quite well. Some of the other projects that I really like, I call Blade Runner projects. And these projects are more about challenging our students to learn that failing's okay, and it's more important to be fast and try things and not get too worried about perfection before making a decision on if the idea is going to work. So I just call them Blade Runner because sometimes the problems we give them seem like they're 20 years into the future. So one of the first problems that we gave our students a little while back was, how could we do photogrammetry of a space in the world like we did for the river project without drones? Okay, so how could we capture a part of the world with photogrammetry, which is super cheap, but without drones? And the reason we asked that question is because it's challenging to receive permits to fly drones, especially in the city. So our students, it was really more of like a philosophical challenge than a technology challenge. Like, how can we capture this without drones? Can we use satellite images? Can we use topographical maps? And what they ended up figuring out was we could use Google VR, Google Earth VR, and fly through the world without a drone, but just with controls in VR and screen capture any space. So this is the School of Informatics captured via Google Earth VR. So we just flew around it from many angles and then converted that video to photographs and ran it through photogrammetry, and it's pretty close. So let me show you that result. And again, like, this is just a couple-week project in one of the classes. You're not graded on perfection, only like how you dealt with the challenge. So you can see, like, there's a lot of distortion and errors in computation. That's pretty normal, but a very good representation of a part of IUPUI's campus, in our case, our school building of informatics. Pretty cool. 10-minute mark, cool. I'll zoom. Do lighting differences throughout the day affect the photo process? Chris, yes. So luckily, since it was in Google Earth, they only had it one time of the day, but you can see over here it's a little darker, so it's probably like a late afternoon. This is the east side of the building, and you can see how, like, that texture is muddied. So the next part of that process, if we wanted to fix that, would be to photograph the building with DSLR cameras and project those textures. Good question. So just kind of like recap, and then I'm going to show a couple slides on where the industry is headed. Super exciting. Our school and the Media Arts and Science program are always collecting new technology or repurposing our labs. So just because of projects like these, we can fund incredible technology that you would only typically see in West Coast universities or Hollywood studios. We have 100% real-time motion capture. That means our students can record animations and put them directly into games live. We teach real-time game and film pipelines in our classes, which means you're going to learn how to model and rig and animate the way studios do. We have both VR and AR equipment, Oculus and Vive. We teach Unity and Unreal. We have lots of 3D printers. For our artists, we have 43 Cintiqs, and we update them every 2 years. We have the latest Blackmagic cameras and video and VFX equipment. And we have computers that will literally make our computer labs 20 degrees hotter when they're all running on our render farms for simulation. So we invest a lot, but it's because we're not only working in entertainment, it's because we're doing projects that bring value to other sectors, and that means it's going to open a career for each of you that's future-proof, in my opinion. So I'm not going to play these videos, but I want to summarize these things. Over the last 4 or 5 years, these are things that big companies have been announcing they're working on that have inspired projects that you've seen before in my talk today. So about 5 years ago, Microsoft announced something called Holoportation, is augmented reality, live scanning and real-time capture of augmented reality content, where you can record conversations or somebody in a lab and then replay it. So it's like watching a memory in a space and being able to talk to people from all over the world. Quite literally what you see in Star Wars with holograms. Unreal 3 years ago announced that their game engine would now support visual effects pipelines and video, 4K video. I really encourage you to watch The Human Race on YouTube. It's essentially making commercials that can be customized to any viewer. Imagine watching a car commercial and being able to choose the car that you're driving in that car commercial, the color of the car, the male or female in the driver's in the passenger seat with you, total customized marketing using game engines. So our students are doing that stuff. This is the motion capture that we just acquired with the school. I have most of it in my basement right now, learning to use it. This was the first time anyone's shown live real-time facial motion capture and a likeness. So here's the actor and scientist and his digital double. Really encourage you to look at that. We're using the same headgear, body gear, and hand tracking that they have in this video from about a year ago. Unreal, just a month ago, announced global illumination, real-time global illumination, which is kind of like the ability of games, especially like the new PlayStation and Xbox, to get this like bounce lighting real time without any computational delay, which means our students and as you guys graduate, you're going to have to know the techniques to utilize lighting and lots of polygons to make things realistic. And then literally 10 days ago, Unity, who competes with Unreal, announced some incredible tools for augmented reality that make it almost possible for anybody with very little 3D or coding experience to make mobile applications using augmented reality. So I suggest you guys take that. And these are all like software and classes that we teach in the program. And we're racing to keep up with what these companies are putting out. I'm super excited for you guys and your peers that are coming back to school. I'll skip over the last few. It's just kind of like things I've learned over the years and watch students. One thing I didn't want to mention, like for students to succeed faster, it's really important to not limit yourself to the software. Software is always going to change, but if you're only concerned about the software, you're not going to get to the aesthetic, the meaning of the story, or the meaning of how you can benefit another industry. So it's super important for students to get used to dealing with software. And secondly, it's super important for students to get used to communicating with people that don't know what 3D and game people do. So I think one of the biggest values that these collaborations add for our students is that they get to learn to talk the talk and be the leaders when it comes to talking about 3D and game making and scanning and things like that. Because dentists and architects and historians are never going to learn the technology, and that's why our students are valuable. So those are some things to think about. I'm going to wrap it up. These are some of the collaborators and students on the projects that you've seen in this slide deck, and some of the funding agencies. In the last 4 years, just within my classes, we've worked with over 200 clients, and most of those clients had teams of students. So expect to work with your peers and also work with local clients making games, VR, 3D printing, etc. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I think we have some time for questions. I hope you have lots of questions I'm going to end it there. Here's our dental team too. Okay. Will you drop YouTube links in the chat, please? Yeah, I can do that. I'll do that at the end of the talk. Any use of Cinema 4D softwares? We have, we don't have Cinema 4D in our lab, in our main labs. We do have it in our 24/7 specialty labs. But Cinema 4D, Maya, 3ds Max, they all use the same like foundations, vertices, edges, polygons, textures, unwrapping, like everything's, even though the softwares are different, made from different companies, you're still learning the right stuff. So I would continue to use Cinema 4D ML, especially if you want to stay in Indiana. It's really popular for motion graphics and marketing companies locally. But you'll be learning mostly Autodesk products, predominantly Maya, ZBrush if you're an artist, and then Adobe, Unreal, and Unity. How is work in terms of entrepreneurship? I wouldn't want to work for big companies. Awesome, Chris, great to hear that. I would say like we're not in the business of helping students make their own businesses, but if that's something that you're interested in, I'd highly recommend maybe getting a minor at the Kelley School of Business. I will, like, if you're taking classes with me, you're going to be thinking entrepreneurially, because I don't really like doing projects that are duplicates of past projects. So if you want to try to innovate in sports or medicine or dentistry, I'll help support you and give you the techniques and technology to do that. How you start the business during school or after will be up to you. And in some small cases, IU is starting to support more and more through a program called IU Ventures, undergraduate startups. So yeah.
Also just want to let you guys know, if you enjoyed this, you should join us for the July 8th and 9th, which is going to be video game and Unreal and creature development with Matthew Powers. So make sure you guys sign up for that session as well. And again, Zeb, thank you so much, and thank you all for joining us.
I think we might need to get a medic. Quentin's brain is melted.
Oh, Emil has one more question.
Emil, do you know who makes all the videos for IUPUI majors? So this is the media arts videos that you see, like the student reels and the SOIC videos. Those are all made by our own students and some video. We have 2 full-time video people. So our students do most of our own marketing, which I think says a lot about our school. As far as IUPUI goes, there's other studios on campus in which our students have worked. I know Mooj did a lot of websites for the campus, and he just graduated and moved back to. But like, if you want to make things, really, my best advice is, like, once we're allowed to be on campus a lot, stay on campus. Make sure your faculty know who you are. Make sure you're asking for opportunities, and you're going to get plenty of opportunities to change things or make things, no matter what you're interested in. I went to school at IUPUI many moons ago, and I rarely heard no as an answer. I went to Russia, I went to Poland, I worked for doctors, I worked for architects, I worked for engineers. All you have to do is be able to articulate what you're interested in, and we'll figure it out. It's a really big campus with a lot of smart people.
I want to add to that. Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
I was just going to add that on the SOIC YouTube channel and the main IUPUI YouTube channel, one of our media arts and science students edits and puts together most of those videos.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. Everybody enjoy, what is today? Thursday. Enjoy your weekends. And we hope you can join us for our next webinars.
See y'all in the fall. Take care.
Thank you.